Hello, everyone. In this session, I will be doing a deep dive session on SAP Cloud Identity Services. We will be looking at the various components of SAP Cloud Identity Services and the crucial role it plays in authenticating users in SAP BTP. Since this is a deep dive session, this video will be significantly longer than the usual ones. So before we start, let's have a quick look at the SAP BTP itself. So when you sign a contract with SAP for the first time, you will get a link to the global account in your email. So once you log into the global account, then you can create any number of sub-accounts in your global account. And the way you divide the sub-account, it can be by region, it can be by functional areas. So it's all up to you how you create your sub-accounts. Now, one thing to note about sub-accounts, they are completely isolated, which means that the user account that you create in sub-account A is only applicable to sub-account A, and then the user accounts in sub-account B are only applicable to sub-account B. It's not just the user accounts, but also the resources and everything as well. So for example, if you allocate 5 units of memory to sub-account A, then that has no bearing on the amount of memory in sub-account B. Once you have your sub-accounts, then what you can do is you can go ahead and enable the environment in which your applications can be hosted. So at this moment, SAP offers 3 different types of environment. You've already know about the Cloud Foundry environment. I would venture out to say that 80 to 90% of the customers would be using the Cloud Foundry environment, but we also have the Kima runtime environment, and we also have the ABAP cloud environment. So if you want to do some ABAP development in the cloud, then you can go ahead and use the ABAP runtime environment. And then if you want to use Kubernetes and some microservices architecture, then you can go ahead and use the Kima runtime. So this is how the structure itself looks like. So you have one global account in your organization that is tied to your license that you signed with SAP. And then you can have any number of sub-accounts. And then in the sub-accounts is where you assign your quotas. And then within the sub-accounts, you can have your environments. So the 3 different environments that we just talked about. You can also have this optional directory as well. So what this directory does is it allows you to have a hierarchy of the sub-account. So let's quickly have a look at how you can set this all up. So if I go to my SAP BTP account. So if I go into my global account right here, so in my global account, when you first sign up, you will not have any sub-accounts there. But then you have the option of create. So let me go into my global account. So when you first go to the global account, let me go ahead and delete this. Yeah, so when you first go in here, there's not going to be any sub-accounts. So in my case, I have 3 different sub-accounts, but in your case, you're not going to have any sub-accounts. And let me see, okay, I have a few directories as well. Let me go ahead and delete these directories as well. So once you log into your global account, then what you can do is you can go ahead and create your own sub-account. So you go into this sub-accounts folder right here, and you can say create sub-account. So let's go ahead and create a sub-account. I will call this Milton sub-account. And then for the region, you can select any infrastructure as a service provider. So for example, if your company always uses Microsoft Azure, then you can stick with Microsoft Azure as your infrastructure provider. So you can select the US East region and then say create. And this is going to create your sub-account for you. So at this moment, once the sub-account is created, this sub-account is not going to have any runtime environment. So once the sub-account is created, what you can do is you can go inside of the sub-account and enable the Cloud Foundry runtime as well. Also, I mentioned that the sub-accounts are completely isolated, which means that the user accounts in Milton sub-account is only applicable to the Milton sub-account. So here you can see that even Cloud Foundry environment is not enabled. So what you can do is you can go ahead and enable Cloud Foundry. So I'll just take the default values and I can go ahead and enable Cloud Foundry. And once you enable Cloud Foundry, you also notice that there is an organization name or organized Cloud Foundry organization that gets created. And within your Cloud Foundry environment, you can create any number of spaces that you want. So here I can create a space called dev. I can go ahead and create another space called Milton. So this is where all your applications are going to reside. So you can create any number of spaces within the sub account. Now, if I go into the global account right here, you can see that you can also have entity assignments. You can have your entitlements right here. So in your global account, you can assign entitlements to your sub accounts. So you can select, let me select the partner certification sub account. So if I go into the edit mode, you can see that I have a Cloud Foundry runtime and I have 5 units of memory assigned to this particular sub account. So this resource that I have assigned to this particular sub account is only applicable to this sub account. So if I only purchased 5 units of memory from SAP in total, that means that this sub account has taken all of the 5 units of memory, and therefore I would not have any units of memory to assign to this newly created sub account. So what I would have to do is I would have to come in here and I would have to reduce the number of sub accounts, the number of memory units here. So now I have freed up 2 units of memory, and this I can assign to the other sub account. Or I can also go ahead and purchase additional memory units as well. So that is something that you should be aware of. But I'm not going to do this. So let me go back to my slide deck, and in SAP BTP, once you have set it all up, there is the concept of platform users and business users. So the users in SAP BTP are broadly classified into platform users and also business users. Now, platform users, for example, they are the administrators. They are the ones that create the sub-account, enable Cloud Foundry, create the spaces, and so on. Whereas business users, once the applications are deployed, they are the ones that consume the applications. So there is a broad classification of the users into platform users and business users. So when you log into the global account for the very first time, the default identity provider is the SAP ID service. So if I go back to my my global account right here, and if I go into the trust configuration, and this is the first time I've signed up with SAP, you can see that there is this default identity provider, and this is the SAP ID service, and this is the one that is authenticating you to connect to this global account. So you probably already have like a S user or a P user or a I user if you're a SAP employee like me. So this is where you can the SAP ID service is the one that is logging you in. The SAP ID service, of course, it is completely managed by SAP, so you don't have much control over the SAP ID service. The password policies, all of that is managed by SAP. So for that reason, what you want to do is you want to go ahead and establish a trust with the SAP Cloud Identity Services, so you have control within your organization of the user identities. So that's what we will look at in the next slide. Okay, so this is the structure, the global account directory, sub-account, Cloud Foundry. We enabled the Cloud Foundry, and then the org got created automatically. We created any number of spaces can be created. Yes, so once you have the default identity provider, once you log in and once, but this is all managed by SAP with the SAP ID service. But what you want to do is now you want to establish a trust with the SAP Cloud Cloud Identity Services. So you have control. And you also need to do that in the sub account as well. So for this, there is a mission, and I'm not sure if you have worked with the SAP Cloud Identity Services, but the SAP Cloud Identity Services, or I'm sorry, if you have worked with the Discovery Center, but the Discovery Center is a really good tool for you to do any kind of missions like this. So a lot of customers have very common needs or common tasks that they perform. So these are set up in the Discovery Center as missions. So you can search for Get Started with SAP Cloud Identity Services, and you will notice that so many other companies have started this mission as well, which means that everybody has this requirement and everybody has gone through the steps of setting up the Cloud Identity Services provider. So if you go ahead and click on this, there is a quick write-up of the SAP Cloud Identity Services, but the more important thing is the project board right here. So if you click on the project board, you see that there are different phases, and it walks you through getting started with Cloud Identity Services all the way to establishing trust. So the discover phase is the target audience is going to be the platform users, because the platform users, they are the ones who are going to be setting up or creating sub accounts and setting up the trust between or establishing trust between SAP Cloud Identity Services and SAP BTP. One of the cool things is if you go into this license model, so here you can read more about SAP Cloud Identity Services here, but if you go into the license model, you will notice that SAP BTP, you get two tenants, two active tenants for free, the test and the production. So you get that free of cost. So all you have to do is connect it to your SAP BTP. Now, if you don't know whether you have where your SAP Cloud Identity Services are here, so if you go to the next card, it talks to you about, let's say you signed up with SAP BTP like 6-7 months ago, but you have never set up the SAP Cloud Identity Services, and you have forgotten the links to the SAP Cloud Identity Services, then you can go to this card. It tells you this link where you can log in, and there you can find your the test and the production active tenants for SAP Cloud Identity Services. There are customers who also have more than two, so you can also request SAP for additional SAP Cloud Identity Services as well. So I'm going to mark this as complete, and let's go to the next one. So if I go into the let me go back to this project board. Let me close this to go to the project board. What I want to do now is go ahead and activate the SAP Cloud Identity Services. I can also use the default BTP identity provider, but like I mentioned before, the SAP ID service is completely managed by SAP, and you want to have control of your user identities within your organization. So for that reason, we want to go ahead and activate the SAP Cloud Identity Services. So here, in order to establish the trust, first we want to make sure we have the proper entitlements. So if I go into entity assignments right here, and then if I go into my sub account, so if I go into my sub account, I already have the entitlement. So you can see that I have the Cloud Identity Services. If you don't have it, just go ahead and edit, and you can add the service plan for the Cloud Identity Services. So now that you have the entitlement, I mentioned that you have to establish the trust at the global account level. So you go into the trust configuration right here, and you click Establish Trust, and this will walk you through the establishing the trust between the SAP Cloud Identity Services and your SAP BTP. So you can select your test active tenant, say next. And for domain, so depends on where your tenant is hosted. It can either be the ondemand.com or the cloud.sap. Let's go ahead and select ondemand.com. Just make sure that this is where your tenant is deployed. Say next, and here you can see this is for the platform users. Say next, and then you can go ahead and finish. So this will set up the Cloud Identity Services as your identity provider right here. Okay, so and this is for the platform users. At the global account level, you can see you can't deploy any applications here. You deploy your applications on the sub account, and the sub account is where the business users are going to come into play to consume the applications. So now that you have established the trust at the global account level, so this trust is going to get cascaded onto your sub account as well. So on your sub account, you will see the trust for this cloud identity services for platform users at least. But what you still need to do is you need to come into the sub account right here. And now you need to establish a trust between the Cloud Identity Services and your sub account. And this is going to be for the business users. So once again, you start the wizard, and it's a very similar wizard like you saw before. So you go ahead and select your test active tenant. Go ahead, say next, and here again select the domain where it was deployed. Say next, and here this is for the business users for the application users. Say next, and once you review this, you can say finish. And this is how you would set up, establish the trust between the SAP BTP and the two active tenants that you are provided with. So going back to the slide. Okay, so in SAP BTP, there is this concept of role templates, roles and role collection. So when you as a developer, you build an application, you create a template for a role. And when you deploy the application, this role template also gets deployed. So especially if you have worked with the CAP application, then you're probably aware of this. So in your access security.json file, you can define how the role should look like. So that will be your role template. And when you deploy it through your mta.yaml file, this role template gets deployed in SAP BTP sub account. Then the administrator can create a role based on this role template. And in SAP BTP, you cannot assign the role directly to the user. What you would do is you would bundle related roles together, and then you would create a role collection and you would assign that to the business user. So this is the security model in the SAP BTP environment. Now, once you have the role collection, then you can access the application that you have deployed in SAP BTP. Now, in SAP BTP, in addition to apps that you deploy in SAP BTP, like a CAP application, what you can also do is with the help of SAP Build Workzone, you can federate apps from other sources as well. So in this case, one of the most commonly used case is the customer also has SAP S/4HANA in their landscape, and they want to federate the SAP S/4HANA apps into SAP BTP. That way, they can use SAP Build Workzone as a single entry point to access all their application. In order to do that, what you would do is you would go into your SAP S/4HANA system. So it can be on-prem, it can be private cloud, whatever you have. So once you log into your SAP BTP, once you log into your once you log into your SAP S/4HANA, you can run this you can run this transaction code, and once you run this transaction code, you can select whatever role you want. So if you look in the Fiori apps library, this role is provided by SAP, and it has a whole bunch of applications inside of this role. So if you have this role, then you have access to all the roles in this that SAP provides. So what you can do is you can go ahead and expose all the apps inside this role by running this transaction code right here. So this is the first step. So once you have this step, what you would then do is, now that you have exposed the apps in SAP S/4HANA, now it's time to go into the SAP BTP. So here I'm using actually a different SAP BTP sub-account. So you go into this SAP BTP sub-account, and you have to create two destinations right here. So if I go into my destinations right here, I have two different destinations. So I have this S4UDT. So this is my design time destination. So what this design time destination does, it allows me to retrieve all the configuration values of all the applications in the SAP S/4HANA site. So I can go ahead and retrieve all the applications with this design time destination. I also then have a runtime destination, and you can see in the runtime destination, I have the authentication as a principal propagation. And what the runtime destination does is it goes ahead and allows you to launch the application and run the application. And because it is set up for principal propagation, your user identity is passed all the way to SAP S/4HANA. So for logging and auditing purpose, this is good because everything that happens in SAP S/4HANA is under the context of the person who launched the tile. So once you have these two destinations in SAP BTP, then what you want to do is you want to configure SAP Build Workzone to consume this exposed content. So the way you would do that is you would go into your SAP Build Workzone, and by default, SAP has a channel provider that is provided for you. So let me log in here. So this channel provider or content provider is for, if I go into this channel manager, you will see that there is this content provider right here, the first one. This is automatically provided by default. And what this allows you to do is it allows you to retrieve all the applications that are deployed in this HTML5 app repository. So what kind of applications are deployed in HTML5 app repository? So all your SAP UI5 applications that you built in BTP or your build apps, they're all deployed here in HTML5 app repository. But the applications that are in SAP S/4HANA side, we need to federate that. We need to bring that in. So for that, we need to create a new content provider. So you would click on new content provider, and here you can call it new S4 content provider. You can call it anything you want, but here what you would do is you would select your design time destination. So this is the destination that points to the SAP S/4HANA, and then you would also point to the runtime destination. And this runtime destination, like I said, this allows you to launch the application. There is also another destination you can create. So you might have seen some tiles with dynamic data. So if you want to retrieve the dynamic data for those tiles, you would have to create another runtime. You would have to create another destination in SAP BTP. But this is not mandatory. And then you would save this, and that would create this new content provider for SAP S/4HANA. Now that you have the content provider here, and now that you have also exposed all the applications from SAP S/4HANA, now it's just a matter of assigning the proper roles to the proper applications. That should be something you probably already know. Okay, so if your SAP S/4HANA system is in the is in the on-premise world, or if it is a private cloud, you would need a cloud connector to connect to the SAP S/4HANA system. Now, the SAP S/4HANA system, the SAP Cloud Connector, it does not require any firewall ports to be open, or any additional firewall ports to be open. So the way the Cloud Connector works, let me give you a quick overview. You probably already know about a proxy server. So here within your organization, your client machines, when they make an external request, so it goes to the proxy server. Proxy server intercepts the request and then sends the request to the web server. And then same thing with the response. It's able to intercept the response and then send it to the client. The advantage of having a proxy server is it anonymizes the client's IP address. Also, it can do some caching to improve performance, and also it can do logging, so it can monitor the traffic, and that can be good for auditing purposes. And there is this reverse proxy server, and I'm pretty sure you're also aware of this. This is the case where the proxy server sits in front of the server. So here, the client request comes in, but the reverse proxy server, this intercepts the request, and then it sends it to the upstream server, and then the server is able to respond back. Again, the reverse proxy server intercepts that and sends the response to the client. So here again, the advantage is it hides the origin of the server. It also mitigates any distributed denial of service attacks. It can also do some SSL termination, thereby offloading the load on the server, and it can also do some caching of static content. So we are already aware of the proxy server and the reverse proxy server. Now I want to talk a little bit about firewall basics. So if you have a client and the client makes a HTTP request on port 80 or HTTPS on port 443. Most organizations will have port 80 and 443 open by default on their firewall because the clients need to make external requests to servers. So it goes through the firewall on either port 80 or 443, and then the server sends the response back. So the question is, do I need to open port 80 inbound on this firewall as well? So the answer is no. You don't need to open port 80 inbound on this firewall. So the way the inbound and outbound, they refer only to the direction of the initial connection. So as long as the client made the initial connection, so just the port 80 and 443, outbound need to be open, which in most organizations it is already open. So here is the reverse invoke proxy, and this is what is used in SAP Cloud Connector. And here the client makes a connection on port 80 or 443 for the first time. It initiates the connection, and then once the server responds back, the client does not close the connection. So the connection is always open. So now the server can use this connection that is already open and make requests to the client. And then the client can go ahead and get some data from a resource server in its network and then send it to the server. So now the roles are a little bit muddied. So the server now acts as the client, and then the client now acts as the server, as you can see here. But the port that was open was only 80 and 443 outbound because the client was the one that initiated the connection. So taking it one step further, so you have SAP BTP on the right side, and you have the Cloud Connector here within your on-prem system. It can be in the DMZ zone as well. So the Cloud Connector initiates the connection, and once the response comes back, it keeps the session open all the time. And then now the BTP is able to make requests to the Cloud Connector, and the Cloud Connector is able to retrieve data from the ABAP server or the S/4HANA server and send it to SAP BTP. So that's a quick overview of how Cloud Connector works, and the reason why you don't need to open any additional ports on the firewall. So we already looked at the SAP ID service. So this is the default identity service that is established when you get the SAP BTP account. And what we have done is we have gone ahead and established a trust with our own SAP Cloud Identity Services. Now, with SAP Cloud Identity Services, this has various components inside of it, as you can see here. In the past, a year ago or a year and a half ago, each of these components, they were licensed separately. So identity authentication was a separate licensing component. Identity provisioning was a separate component. But now they're all bundled together inside SAP Cloud Identity Services. So in these components, the identity authentication and the identity provisioning are by far the most important components. So the identity authentication, it takes care of authentication and single sign-on. So when the request comes into the SAP Cloud Identity Services, identity authentication, yeah, it gets the request first. And what it can do is this is the identity directory. So this is where the users are stored. So it can authenticate the users against this identity directory. And then once you are authenticated, it can it can allow the user to access the SAP SaaS solutions. Now, a lot of customers, they probably don't use the identity directory. They want to use their own corporate identity directory, in which case the identity authentication service, instead of authenticating against the identity directory, it can delegate the authentication to your corporate identity provider. And then your corporate identity provider can authenticate you, and then the user has access to the SAP business applications. So this is by far, I think, the most commonly used rather than authenticating directly with the identity directory. So let's have a quick look or a deeper look into the identity authentication service itself. So we looked at the two different use cases where the SAP authentication service can either authenticate against the local directory, or it can use the corporate identity provider to authenticate you. So here is a visual diagram. So the business user comes in. So the identity authentication supports various forms of authentication right here. And then it can allow the user to access the business applications here. Or what the identity authentication can do is it can delegate the authentication to your corporate identity provider. So if you have a Microsoft Entra ID, or if you have Okta, or if you have Ping, so your corporate identity provider can do the authentication, and then the identity authentication can let the user access the application. Now, the Identity Authentication Service can supports both SAML 2.0 protocol and also the OpenID Connect. But it is recommended that you always use the OpenID Connect. So for all your applications, it's recommended to it's recommended to configure the cloud identity services with OIDC. So your corporate identity provider, once the user logs in, can send the SAML assertion, and the identity authentication can then use that to give the user access to the cloud applications. So there are these two different protocols in the authentication world, the SAML and the OIDC. SAML was introduced in the early 2000s, and OpenID Connect with the advent of a single page application. So all the SAP UI5 applications, they belong to the single page application like React and so on. And mobile applications, they all require OpenID Connect. So nowadays OpenID Connect is becoming more and more popular, but SAML is still widely used as well. But most of the new features are being added to the OpenID Connect. And that's another reason why we want you to set up the Cloud Identity Services with OpenID Connect. Also, if you're going to be using SAP Build Workzone and Task Center and Joule, so for all these applications, we do require OpenID Connect. So if you're setting up Cloud Identity Services for in your organization right now for the first time, definitely set it up with OpenID Connect. We already mentioned this. So the user can log into the corporate identity provider. The SAML assertion happens, and then the identity authentication can allow you access to the application. So this is where the identity authentication acts as a proxy to the corporate identity provider. Now, in addition to that, what the identity authentication can do is once the user logs into the corporate identity provider, the corporate identity provider issues a SAML assertion, but the identity authentication can enrich that SAML assertion. It can look into its local directory, and now here it has enriched that SAML, and then it can pass it on to your application as well. So it can do this additional enrichment as well. In addition, let's say you don't have like a proper SAML 2.0 compliant corporate IDP, rather you have a lightweight, the LDAP server. So the LDAP server is like a user directory. What the identity authentication can do is, because this is a lightweight directory access protocol, it can add like more features to it. It can add like a two-factor authentication. It can add the policies, user policies, UI configuration. This identity authentication can provide all that, and you can still use your LDAP server on-prem. Now, I did mention before that it is recommended to use OpenID Connect with your Cloud Identity Services. So you might ask, so what happens to apps that require SAML? So the Identity Authentication Service, it supports both SAML and OIDC at the same time. For each application's protocol, you can set it separately in IAS via the Applications and Resources section. So I'll show it to you later when we look at the administration console. Let's go here. So let's have an example here, right? Here, the user logs into your corporate identity provider, and let's say that this provides a SAML assertion. Now, the identity authentication is smart enough. It can do a protocol translation right here. So even though this comes in as a SAML, it can convert that SAML into an OIDC token. And let's say if there is an application that requires OpenID Connect, then it can send this OIDC token to this application. But if an application requires SAML, then what the identity authentication can do is it can send the SAML assertion from the corporate identity provider to the success factors or to the application that requires it. So it can also enrich this SAML. We also talked about it in the previous slide as well. So here is like the same thing in a tabular format. Let's say in your corporate identity provider, it can support either SAML or OpenID Connect. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's nice if it supports OpenID Connect, but if it supports SAML, that is fine as well. So let's say your corporate identity provider supports SAML. Let's assume. So your SAP IAS, this connects both up and downstream. So up meaning the connection to the corporate IDP, and downstream to the application. So let's assume that this application only wants SAML. So what the IAS is going to do is it's going to get a SAML assertion from your Entra ID, and then it's going to pass it along to this SAP SuccessFactors. But let's say you have a BTP application and that requires OpenID Connect, then the IAS is going to take the same SAML assertion, do a protocol translation, and then send this OpenID token to the BTP application. So the identity authentication also has other important characteristics as well. So here you can see that we can use multiple identity providers to authenticate the user. So let's say there is an employee, your corporate employees, they come in, so you can use the identity authentication to use your own corporate identity provider to authenticate these users. Whereas if you have some trusted partners coming in, based on some very simple rules like email domain or IP address range, then you can authenticate these users with the partner identities providers. So this is also possible. And let's say like somebody else, external user just comes in, the identity authentication can block the user right here without even having to redirect it to any identity providers right here. So this is the same slide. We have multiple identity providers, so you can set like a simple rule on the application level where the identity authentication can authenticate the users. In addition to that, we also support multi-factor authentication. So you can go ahead and install the Authenticator app on your iOS or Android phone. Or you can even get like a SMS text message, and that can be used for multi-factor authentication. So different types of authentication that is supported by SAP Identity Authentication right here. You also have the social identity providers, the corporate identity providers as well. Also, you can set custom password policies for the group. And okay, so this is like a SAML flow that happens, user access request. And because they are not authenticated, because they are not logged in, the request is redirected to the identity provider, and that you get the SAML, and that's how you get access to the resource. Multi-factor authentication, so different types of authentication possible. We also have a risk-based authentication. So this is also called adaptive authentication, or an intelligent way of authenticating users. So for example, if a normal employee logs in, then it allows you to log in normally with your username password. But then if you log in at 2 a.m. in the morning from a remote country, then it detects some suspicious activity, and therefore it prompts you for a two-factor authentication. Also, if you're a member of the user group admin, because this is a sensitive group, it can also prompt you for a two-factor authentication. So the local identity directory, we didn't talk about it much, but with the local identity directory, you can store the users in SAP Cloud Identity Services locally as well. And this is also recommended if you're going to be using Task Center and Joule. And you don't have to use this for authentication, but you can provision the users into your local identity directory. And we'll talk a little bit more about provisioning when we talk about identity provisioning services. So you can create the users in the local identity directory many different ways. You can do a self-registration, you can upload a CSV file, or you can sync through IPS, which is probably what you would do as a common scenario. Okay, so let's have a quick look at the administration console itself. So here, let me go ahead and pull up the administration console for the Cloud Identity Services. So in the Cloud Identity Services, you have the local directory, right? So here is the local directory right here, and you can manage your users right here as well. So there are different ways in which you can create the users. You can add them manually, you can upload them with a CSV file, you can sync them through IPS, which is probably what you would do. So you can import the users using a CSV file and so on. But if you look at the user itself, let's say when you create a user like this, there is this concept of a global user ID. So this global user ID, of course, this needs to be unique for each user, but it also shouldn't change for the entirety of the user life cycle. So make sure that you have a global user ID, and this doesn't change at all. A lot of times, your corporate identity provider, like Microsoft Entra ID, will already have a global user ID. So you can simply bring that in. So simply bring that global user ID in and make sure, and of course, since the Microsoft Entra ID is enforcing that, make sure it doesn't change, which it will not change. Okay, and then, yeah, so this is all about the local identity directory, many different ways in which you can add the users here. Now, here in your identity providers right here, so what you can do is you can have different corporate identity providers. So I mentioned here, so we've already established a trust with the identity service provider. And now the identity service provider can delegate the authentication to a corporate IDP. So here what you can do is you can go ahead and create your own identity provider. I've created one right here, but creating is fairly simple. You simply say create, give a name, Milton demo 2, and then you can select what kind of IDP it is. So let's say this is a Microsoft Entra ID SAML 2. Again, it's nice if you can use your identity provider also as OpenID compliant, so you can select this. But if you select a SAML 2, that's fine too. We already mentioned that the IAS can do the authentication. It can do the translation, the protocol translation. So you would go ahead and create this. And now let's assume that we have 3 different identity providers. What you can do is you can go into the application and resources right here. And then within your application and resources, let's say, yeah, so you have multiple entries because each sub account is going to be treated as its own application, and also build work zone will be treated as its own application, and so on. So here in your SAP BTP, in whatever application you want, what you can do is you can go into this conditional authentication, and this is where you can add this simple rule saying, hey, use Milton demo if the email domain is going to be sap.com. So for sap.com, always use this identity provider, and so you can set the different conditions right here. And one other thing is, if you go into this trust, we have a single identity authentication. We have established trust with a single identity services. And that is recommended, just a single one. But you can go ahead and create another, you can create a trust with another identity services as well, but it's not recommended at all. And in that case, if you have 2 of them, so which one is going to do the authentication, right? So then in that case, you would use like a query parameter saying, hey, you would do something like my SAML IDP is equal to something, or something similar to this, like with the query parameter. But that's all not supported. I mean, I wouldn't say it's not supported, but it's not preferred anyways. You only want to have a single identity services right here. And within that single identity services, there you can have any number of identity providers, and then you can assign rules as to who is going to do the authentication. More than likely, you will only have one corporate identity provider which acts as the source of truth for everyone. But if you do have external partners, and if you want to authenticate them with a different identity provider, that you can do as well. Okay, so that's as far as the identity authentication is concerned. So now let's turn our focus into the identity provisioning. So with identity provisioning, what we are interested is, just like the name suggests, we are interested in the provisioning of user identities. So with the user can onboard, they can change their position, they can get promoted, and finally they get offboarded. And we need to track all the changes for the user. So we need to create the user account, update the authorization, and then finally deprovision the user as well. So this is a nicer slide. So I just created the slide. So here we have all the target systems right here. Now, When the user gets authenticated, the Identity Authentication Service that does the authentication, and then the user comes to, let's say, SAP S/4HANA system, and he's now trying to access a table within SAP S/4HANA system. Now, the SAP S/4HANA system, this is the one that checks whether the user can access that table or not. So this does all the authorizations happen on the SAP S/4HANA side, which also means that the user identity needs to reside here as well. So there should be a user so that the SAP S/4HANA can check whether that user can access that table. Similarly, within SAP SuccessFactors, let's say a user is trying to access a MDF object. So SAP SuccessFactors is the one that is going to do the authorization. And for that reason, SAP SuccessFactors also needs to have the user account inside the SAP SuccessFactors system. So not just the resource providers, but also SAP IAS, Entra ID, they can all be target systems as well. Now, it's going to be a pain in the ass if you need to go ahead and create all these users manually, like in SAP SuccessFactors, SAP S/4HANA, SAP IAS, and so on. So for that reason, we have the Identity Provisioning Service. And the goal of this Identity Provisioning Service is to go ahead and provision the user identities in all of these systems. So on the source side, again, you can have any number of sources. You can have the Microsoft Entra ID. So this could be your source of truth for user identities, but you could also have SuccessFactors. You can have any number of source systems right here. And what the Identity Provisioning Service can do is it can run a job every night, or you can also run the job manually, like if you want on demand. And it can take all the changes. Let's say there are some changes in the Entra ID, so it can move all those changes to the target systems. I think with SAP S/4HANA, SAP S/4HANA is able to, if anything changes, it's able to automatically let Identity Provisioning Service know that something has changed. Now, the Identity Provisioning Service can also do transformation as well. So it has its own schema of the user model, but the schema for the Entra ID may not map identically to the schema, the user schema in SAP SuccessFactors. So there needs to be some kind of mapping or some kind of a transformation that needs to take place. So the Identity Provisioning Service can do all of that. So when it moves the user identities from the source to the target, the Identity Provisioning Service can do the transformation so that it can move successfully to the SAP SuccessFactors. So in addition to transformation, it can also do some filtering as well. So if you have like 1 million users in the Entra ID, but you only want to provision a subset of that users, you can do that as well by filtering out the unwanted users. So that's the Identity Provisioning Service in a nutshell. So here is the transformation engine. So it can map the various attributes from the source system to the target system. For example, the date format, the number format, and if the attribute surname is called as a family name. So yeah, so it can do all this mapping as well. In addition, it can do filtering as well. There are different types of connectors as far as identity provisioning is concerned. You have the source system connectors. We already know what the source, so it's able to read from the source system, and then it's able to go ahead and write to the target system. So basically, a source system is where you read it, and the target system is where you write. There is also a special connector called the proxy system, and what this does is this is for hybrid scenarios. So as long as these systems are SCIM compliant, then it's able to read and write to these systems as well. So SCIM is the protocol. Okay, so this is the same slide as before. So SCIM is the protocol that allows users that the identity provisioning service uses to move the user identities between the target system and the source system, between the source system and the target system. So some of the value proposition for identity provisioning, so it has dedicated connectors to third-party cloud platforms. So it has a dedicated connector to SuccessFactors. It has a dedicated connector to Ariba, Concur, and so on. And it is also supports the industry standard SCIM. So we looked at the transformation engine. So you can take the source, you can transform it, and then you can write it to the target system. In addition, what you can do is if you're going to be using an on-prem system, so in an on-prem system, for example, SAP S/4HANA, right, on-prem system. So it doesn't natively support the SCIM protocol. And I mentioned that the identity provisioning uses the SCIM protocol, and SAP S/4HANA, the on-prem system, doesn't natively support the SCIM protocol. So in that case, we also work in conjunction with the SAP Identity Management, and we are able to write or provision users to the SAP S/4HANA system by using the SAP Identity Management. And in addition to provisioning users, what we can also do is we can enrich some of the attributes by using the local identity directory as well. So we can add more information by using the identity directory. This is where users are stored locally, and then provision it to the target system. So yeah, I mentioned about the identity management. So the identity management supports a variety of on-prem systems, and a lot of these on-prem systems, they don't talk SCIM natively. So we use the identity management in order to push the user accounts into these various systems. So SCIM, I already mentioned, this is the protocol that is used for the exchange of user accounts. It's a REST API, very simple to use. So in addition to the identity management that we talked about, we can also use the third-party solutions as well. So if you have a third-party solution in your landscape, we can work with that as well with our identity provisioning. So now let's talk about applications that are deployed in SAP BTP. So this is another feature this is where the XSUAA comes into play. So let's assume that you built an application in CAP and you want to go ahead and you have deployed it to the Cloud Foundry environment. And let's say you want to authenticate users against this CAP application. So in this case, what you would do is the app router comes into play. So when the business so here is your application right here, and your application, what you don't want to do is you don't want to expose it to the internet directly. So in front of this application, there resides the app router. So the business users or anyone coming to access the application, they initially go to the app router, and the app router intercepts the request. And if you're not logged in, what it will do is it will send your request to this XSUAA. So this XSUAA in turn sends the request to your IAS, your authentication service, which in turn delegates to the corporate identity provider, which in turn authenticates you and provides you with a SAML. Let's say that the corporate identity provider is set up with SAML, so it sends a SAML assertion, and then the XSUAA can transform this into a JWT token and send it to the app router, and then the app router sends this JWT token to the application, and now you're able to access the resource. So quick, let me show you a quick example of that. So if I go into my application right here, so here I have a very simple application, CAP Security UI. And here, this is also a good example of a single page application. So these are the modern applications. So the web browsers have become more and more powerful nowadays. So they even have their own database and everything in there. So with the with the single page applications, it's almost like the application is deployed onto the system. So if I go ahead and open the developer tools, you can see that the new single page applications from SAP UI5, or if you build an application React, whatever, they simply make a call, a API call to the backend to get the data. So all these files, the UI files, UI file, or the HTML files, the JavaScript files, the CSS files, they're already sent to the browser on the very first when the browser connects for the first time. And from now on, all it has to do is only get the data, and then it knows how to display the data and so on. And this request goes to the Access UAA. The API request goes to the Access UAA. Access UAA is able to do all the delegation, get the JWT token and so on. So if I look at the logs, you can see with the logs, let me go ahead and run the logs right here when I go ahead and get the data here. So once I get the data here, if I look at the logs, I can also output the JWT token. So this is the JWT token that I get from the application itself. And then you can go into JWT IO and even like look into it to see like what are the contents of the JWT token. I mean, this is not recommended, of course, for production purpose, but if you're going to do any kind of testing, you can look at the JWT token. One cool thing is I noticed is if I look in the headers itself, so the application itself, when it's making the API call, is not sending, if you look at the request headers, it's not sending the authorization bearer token, like the JWT token is not sent as part of the authorization bearer token, but rather in the cookie, you can see that there is a J session ID that is being sent. So what the Access UAA is doing is it's looking at the session ID, and then it is populating the request with the JWT token. So that's something that you should be aware of. So the Access UAA is doing a lot more stuff. It takes the session ID and then injects the bearer JWT token into the request. Okay, I think this is a good overview, a good deep dive into SAP Cloud Identity Services. So if you're going to be using Joule, Task Center, and so on, you do need SAP Cloud Identity Services, and it is recommended that you set it up with OpenID Connect. Okay, thank you, everyone.